You might have been a child, but somehow you were also the adult in the room. You learned early how to calm people down, how to avoid conflict, how to make things easier for everyone else. Maybe you were the one who listened to your parents' problems, the one who stayed quiet so things wouldn't explode. And people called you mature, responsible, strong. But sometimes you wonder why being the strong one feels so heavy, why relaxing feels uncomfortable, why other people's emotions still feel like your responsibility. And there's a deeper question beneath all of it. What actually happens to the mind when a child slowly becomes the parent? Problem deep dive. Imagine a child sitting in a living room late at night. A parent is venting about work, about relationships, about stress. The child listens carefully, not because they fully understand, but because they feel they have to. So they nod, they comfort, they say the right words. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. The emotional roles in the family quietly shift. Instead of the adult regulating the child's emotions, the child begins regulating the adult's. Psychologists call this parentification. It happens when a child takes on responsibilities that normally belong to a caregiver. Sometimes those responsibilities are practical: cooking, cleaning, taking care of siblings. But often, the deeper version is emotional. The child becomes the listener, the mediator, the emotional support system. At first, it looks admirable. Teachers say you're mature for your age. Relatives say you're wise beyond your years. But internally, the brain is adapting in a very specific way. Instead of focusing on curiosity and exploration, the mind becomes focused on stability. You start monitoring the room. Is someone upset? Is tension building? Is something about to go wrong? And slowly, your identity forms around a quiet belief. My job is to keep things together. That belief follows you into adulthood. You might notice it when a friend is upset and you feel responsible for fixing it, or when conflict appears in a group and your mind instantly tries to stabilize the situation. Even in small moments, a delayed text message, a slightly irritated tone, a tense conversation, your brain begins scanning for signals, because for a long time, your safety depended on it. But here's the deeper question. Why does the brain adapt this way in the first place? Reframe. It's easy to look back at this pattern and think something went wrong, but the truth is more complicated. Your brain didn't malfunction, it adapted. Human children are biologically wired for attachment. From a neuroscience perspective, connection is survival. A child's nervous system constantly asks one silent question: what behavior keeps me safe in this environment? In stable environments, safety comes from trust. Children explore, they experiment, they make mistakes. But in unstable emotional environments, the mind learns a different strategy. It shifts attention outward. Instead of asking, "What do I feel?" the mind asks, "What does everyone else feel?" This shift is not weakness. It's a highly intelligent survival adaptation. Your brain essentially learned, if I manage the emotional climate, I maintain connection. And maintaining connection meant safety. The tragedy isn't that the child adapted. The tragedy is that the adaptation often continues long after it's needed. And to understand why, we need to look deeper into the brain. Psychological mechanism. When a child repeatedly manages adult emotions, the nervous system becomes extremely sensitive to social cues. This process is called hypervigilance. The brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, begins scanning constantly for signals that something might go wrong. Not physical danger, but emotional danger. Anger, withdrawal, disappointment. Think of it like a smoke alarm in a house. Normally, smoke alarms activate during fires, but when a child grows up managing emotional instability, the brain lowers the sensitivity threshold. Now, the alarm activates at the smallest sign of smoke. A sigh, a raised voice, a long pause in conversation. Meanwhile, another part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, becomes highly active in predicting outcomes. You learn to anticipate reactions. You replay conversations in your head. You adjust your behavior before conflict appears. Over time, the brain constructs a mental model. If I stay ahead of everyone's emotions, nothing will collapse. That mental model is powerful, but it creates a hidden cost. Because the nervous system never stops scanning, even when you're safe, even when nothing is wrong. Which raises an important question. If the brain learned this pattern so early, how can it ever learn something different? Practical framework. Changing this pattern isn't about forcing yourself to stop caring. Your empathy is real. The goal is not to remove it. The goal is to retrain the brain's sense of responsibility. Here are 4 principles that gradually reshape the pattern. 1. Notice the emotional radar. First, observe how often your mind scans for emotional signals. You might enter a room and instantly check, is someone upset? Did I say something wrong? Is there tension here? This habit happens automatically, but awareness activates the prefrontal cortex, which helps interrupt automatic emotional reactions. Example, you walk into a meeting at work. The room feels quiet and tense. Instead of immediately trying to fix the atmosphere, you simply notice the urge. I'm scanning the room again. That small moment of awareness weakens the old loop. 2. Separate empathy from responsibility. Children who become emotional caregivers often merge 2 different psychological systems, empathy and responsibility. Empathy means understanding how someone feels. Responsibility means solving the problem. Your brain learned to combine them, but they don't have to be connected. Example, a friend calls you and starts venting about their relationship. Instead of immediately offering solutions, you listen. You acknowledge their feelings, but you don't try to fix the situation. This teaches your nervous system a new rule. Connection does not require control. 3. Allow small emotional discomfort. Another belief formed in parentified children is this: conflict must be avoided. But behavioral psychology shows something important. The brain rewires through corrective experiences, moments where a feared outcome does not occur. Example, you politely decline a request from a coworker. They seem slightly disappointed, but the relationship continues normally. Your brain records new evidence. Conflict does not destroy connection. 4. Rebuild internal attention. When a child becomes the emotional caretaker, attention flows outward. You monitor everyone else, but healing requires gently turning some attention inward again. Simple questions can help. What am I feeling right now? What do I actually need? At first, these questions may feel unfamiliar, but with repetition, the brain rebuilds internal awareness networks, and slowly, the nervous system realizes a new truth. Your emotions also deserve space. Integration. Imagine your mind as a room filled with monitors. Each screen shows emotional signals from other people: anger, tension, disappointment, approval. For years, you believed it was your job to watch every screen at once, to predict problems before they happened, to stabilize the entire system. But here's the truth. That control room was never meant to be operated by a child.
and it was never meant to stay on high alert forever. Healing doesn't mean turning the monitors off. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a finely tuned perception system. But now you're learning something different. You don't have to manage every signal. You can simply observe and choose what actually belongs to you. Quiet, empowering close. When a child becomes the parent, something complex happens. Part of childhood disappears too early, but something else develops in its place. Awareness, depth, the ability to sense emotional shifts that others overlook. These qualities are not weaknesses. They are forms of intelligence. The challenge is learning how to carry them without carrying every